Look, I've been very clear over the last year and a half, that there is ample evidence of collusion in plain sight. And I use that word very carefully because I also distinguish time and time again between collusion, that is acts of corruption that may or may not be criminal, and proof of a criminal conspiracy. And that is a distinction that Bob Mueller made within the first few pages of his report. In fact, every act that I pointed to as evidence of collusion has now been borne out by the report.
This is some big news, Will, as there is a whistleblower, a Democrat whistleblower,
right, whose
documents have been exposed, thanks to Kash Patel, thanks to a lot of the groups, thanks to Just the News, for reporting this, showing that there was a team within Adam Schiff's office alerting, whistleblowing, that things were not on the up and up, that specifically this was a targeted attack on President Trump to try to find and dig out documents not related to what was going on necessarily with national security, just to derail President Trump.
Well, and also with the express goal to get an indictment against President Trump. These come from FBI Form 302s. We've heard about those a lot during the Russiagate stuff. So that's the interview form that an FBI agent is filling out when they're conducting an interview. It's an official document. And what this shows is that someone who was a Democrat working for the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, so the House Intel Committee, was in these meetings with Democrats, with Adam Schiff, where he was saying things like he wanted to purposefully leak classified information that was derogatory to President Trump, and he wanted that information to be used to get an indictment against President Trump. This individual was not comfortable with that. This individual pushed back. They were told, don't worry about it. He went to the FBI, and even the FBI at the time was seeming to be like, well, there's a lot of leeway in the speech and debate clause in the U.S. Constitution. While that may be so, this person was concerned about the ethics of this, the legality of it, but all this was directed by Adam Schiff. We knew that he was a leaker, but how much he was coordinating behind the scenes to try and leak things to the media to try and get an indictment against the President of the United States.
The first thing I think you have to realize here is this. Number one, and I think this is critical, this was a Democratic staff member who gave the information to the FBI, who was then interviewed by the Federal Bureau of Investigation on 3 separate occasions that we know of. As Will mentioned, the 302 is the form that the FBI utilizes when they interview. These are the notes taken by the FBI agents. Kash Patel is confirmed as the FBI director, gets this information probably in the normal course of review. This was from 2017. And this individual alleges that Adam Schiff leaked classified documents to the media on purpose, knowing they were classified, to tarnish President Trump. Now, of course, I know firsthand what was going on in this because we represented the president at that point. And here's the key thing that I think you have to remember, Logan. This is what happens when weaponization of an agency takes place. And the Democrats went after President Trump with a vengeance, both while in office and then when we had President Biden. They indicted the former president of the United States in jurisdictions, alleging, by the way, the same kind of handling of classified documents. How come if President Trump gets indicted for it and Adam Schiff, nothing happens? Well, I think that's about to change. So what happens now is once this information is out, there will be further investigations. A grand jury should then be impaneled, and that grand jury should then, if the evidence supports it, bring a charge for violating a number of federal statutes here.
So many people have been pointing to the speech and debate clause in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 6, Clause 1, which says that the members of both houses of Congress may be privileged from arrest during their attendance of the session of their respected houses. And it goes on to say, and for any speech and debate in either house, they shall not be questioned in any other place. Some of the reporting is that the whistleblower, that's the pushback he got. And we know that many members of Congress have used the well of the Senate or the floor of the House to speak things into the record that would otherwise not be allowed to be put out there. Maybe it be classified documents or something of that nature. And that is a protection that the Constitution gives. However, if you're directing staff to leak classified documents, how far does this protection of speech and debate extend in a case like this?
Yeah, this has nothing to do with the speech and debate clause, though. I mean, that's the first go-to that anybody that serves in Congress utilizes. By the way, the speech and debate clause has been litigated a number of times. Here's the issue on the speech and debate clause. This was not first of all, it wasn't on the floor of the Senate. That's in your House, number one. Number two, it wasn't a speech and debate effort. It wasn't statements made in that context. This was a leak. This is what the allegation is by this whistleblower. This is a leak of classified information. That is not protected by the speech and debate clause, because if it was, America's national security would be constantly in jeopardy. So those that say speech and debate, nonsense. This is, if the allegations are true, and based on what I have seen in the past, nothing would surprise me here.
A lot of people are asking so then what happens? This is always the big question, which is, we've uncovered all this information. Kash Patel said, here it all is. There'll be referrals. There'll be all this. What's the true next step? Because Adam Schiff, we know, has even bigger plans and bigger hopes for his political career. And this, could this result in anything?
Well, it sure could. I mean, they've got, first of all, under Pam Bondi, the Department of Justice has set up a task force on weaponization of federal agencies. As I said, a grand jury could be impaneled as the evidence warrants, and that grand jury could issue an indictment. Adam Schiff isn't immune from the law. These are the ones that scream about nobody's above the law, yet that when they are involved in activities, they immediately try to hide behind a speech and debate clause. And by the way, I don't think there's anything wrong with having a speech and debate clause. I think the founders were right, but it has nothing to do with this issue whatsoever. If, in fact, the allegations are true, a crime was committed.
And when you think about the way that Director Gabbard has laid this out, seeing the ways that intelligence was manipulated and then changed in order to frame a narrative against the president at the direction of President Barack Obama at the time, and then you saw the way that James Comey had a part in this. Now we're seeing that the Intelligence Committee, the Democrats there, were specifically playing a role in this. This is where that grand conspiracy investigation seems to really take place, where you're seeing multiple branches of the government in coordination trying to go after someone who is elected by the people. And it also harkens back to when Chuck Schumer said, you better not go after the intelligence community because they have 6 ways from Sunday to get back at you. All of this points to some sort of coup and grand conspiracy against President Trump.
Well, we know that, of course, from what happened during the 4 years in his first term. I mean, this was a constant attack. It was whether it was an impeachment, whether it was the nonsense with Bob Mueller, that whole situation, and Adam Schiff saying he has seen the evidence, remember, of Russia's collusion with the Trump campaign, and then there was none. This was a guy who made up a transcript of a conversation between the president of the United States and Vladimir Zelensky. He made it up. He made up the text. And he later admitted that it was just to, make the point more clear. It's nonsense. So the end result of all of this, in my view, is a grand jury should be impaneled. That grand jury should look at the evidence as warranted, indictments flow, if in fact the allegations have a probable cause factor, reasonable to move forward. And I believe it will be. I'm not surprised by any of this. I do want to remind people, President Trump has only been in office 8 months, Kash Patel less than that. So it's going to take some time here, but I think we're on the right track. I think people are going to be held accountable.